Hello everyone, it's Leah from MethMac Communications here for the first Ask Leah Facebook live stream. I am a couple of minutes late because I did have a few technical difficulties, but we're up and running now and I'm thrilled to be here. So the idea behind this Facebook Live Ask Leah stream is to answer some of the questions that you have for me, either live. You can ask questions now, you can comment and pop them through and I'll do my best to answer them in the stream. But I also was asking some of my followers through the week, are there any communications questions that you'd like answered? And I had 3 cracking good questions come through. So I'm going to start off the feed by answering those questions quite briefly, but hopefully it gives those who ask the questions some tips for how to handle the situations they raised. So the first question came from Jenny Finlay, and her question was about how a younger person should go about communicating in a workplace when their colleagues are older than them and you as the younger person are more qualified. And this is something I actually see quite often in workplaces now, because what often happens is you get older, more experienced people who have been in workplaces for a long time, who went into that workplace when you didn't need a professional qualification. So they've been there, they know their stuff. And then you've got these newcomers, these, Gen Y, people coming into the workforce, have just started their careers. And you know what? To get the job now, they've had to go through a 3, 4, 5-year university degree. So they are more highly qualified, but they lack the experience. Now, where conflict can arise quite quickly in a workplace is when there's not the respect there for each other, and it can really go both ways. So sometimes you have a situation where the older workers are quite defensive and, they're thinking, well, who does this person think they are? They've been here 5 minutes. I've been here a long time. I've got the experience. And the young person equally is thinking, well, what do they know? I've studied. I know my stuff. And, I'm more highly qualified. You see this in health quite a lot. It might be, different division of nursing. You see it across a whole heap of industries. Accounting and finance is another one where a lot of people, a lot of the older generation in those roles don't have formal qualifications. And of course now people have to. So the first thing you should be doing when you're thinking about how to communicate with people who might be a bit standoffish, and if you're that younger person, how do you, try to communicate with these older staff members? The first thing is empathy. Empathy will get you a long way with communication, no matter who it is, no matter what the situation. And what empathy is about is putting yourself in the shoes of other people. So even when someone's really frustrating you, angering you, behaving in a way you don't like, stop for a second and put yourself in their shoes. See it from their perspective, even if you don't agree. So if you're the young staff member, you see it from the other person's perspective and you think, geez, they've worked here for 30 years. They don't have the formal qualification, but they do know their stuff. And now there's all these new staff coming in and they feel like they're invalidated, as if people are trying to say that what they've done doesn't count. So go at your communication with that frame of mind. Have a bit of empathy to start with. Then show respect, even if you're not being given it. Some people say, well, why should I have to show respect if no one's showing it to me? And you know what? This isn't about other people. This is about you. Show respect to your colleagues. Show respect for their experience and tell them that. Say to them, look, I've got a lot to learn. I might have the qualification, but you've been here 30 years. You know the environment and I really want to learn from you. If you show respect for another person, you are more likely to get it back. The third tip is to be assertive. It's really hard to pull an issue and conflict back, it can be done, but it's hard if you've let it go for a long time first. So, if you've let everyone walk all over you and then you're saying, well, now I want to stand up for myself, it can absolutely be done, but it's a lot harder. So if you find that people are maybe being a bit disrespectful because you're young when you first start, speak up about that, in a really reasonable, assertive way. Maybe have a one-on-one with that older staff member and say, you know what, I think we could really learn from each other here. I know I've got a lot to learn from people like you, and I want to learn. I want to know your experience. And although I might be young, I come with fresh eyes, and, I've just finished my degree. There's a whole lot of new ideas there. If we combine together and take the best of both of us, we're going to come up with the best result. So there's 3 tips for how to approach that one. The second question that came from Kirsten Finger from Olivia's Place. Hi, Kirsten. Kirsten was also the winner of the Step Up Award this year, which was fabulous. She does fantastic work at Olivia's Place, as does the entire Olivia's Place team. And I may have a situation like South Korea here where I have children walk in on me. Hopefully not, but that's the reality of a home-based business when you've just put the kids to bed. So the second question was, hi, Kirsten. So Kirsten, I'm glad you're on board, because I'm about to answer your question, which was, how do you go about when you're managing a team, different personalities, some people who have been there a really long time, some people who are new. How do you build someone up? How do you build their assertiveness when they're one of the newer members of an established team? And this is a really common issue. Again, it's linked into that first question in terms of, you've got a new starter, you've got people who have been there a long time. How do you make that new person feel like their voice counts and that they can contribute? And to that, the existing team, and particularly the leader, plays a really important role, because it's about the environment that you bring that new person into. Yes, ideally they will be able to stand up and, be assertive themselves, but sometimes it can be intimidating joining a new group. Hi, Tracy. It can be intimidating, and, you're trying to find your place. So how you can make that person feel valued is to create an environment where their newness is actually a huge opportunity, particularly if you've got an established team. Because while the established team might know what they're doing, they might have been doing it so long that they are set in their ways, that they, are blind to new opportunities. And you've got this newcomer who's seeing everything with fresh eyes. So, this person with a lack of experience, yes, they might have that lack of experience, but geez, this is your opportunity. Where, what do you see? Is there anything that stands out that could be done better? This is something I've been doing just this week. As some of you know, I've got a new virtual assistant. Hi, Kate. A new virtual assistant who started this week, Ephriel, who's fabulous. But she's new to my business, and I've been running at full pelt for so long that I know there's a lot of parts of my business that need improving. So I've said to her, I want to know them. When you see things that can be improved, please tell me, because we so value your opinion. And then I actually ask her, and I encourage you to do the same, Kirsten. Encourage this person, right? Ask them direct questions. Is there anything you think we could do better in this system from what you know from your previous roles or your previous experience? Any suggestions you've got. Now, with a passive communicator, you do have to ask direct questions. I had a situation recently where I was coaching a senior leader, and he was really frustrated because he was getting up in front of his team. He was giving instructions in the morning, and then he was saying, right, folks, any questions? And he was quite a direct, assertive, sometimes crossing over into aggressive personality. And of course, when he said, right, any questions, there were a number of people in his team who were passive. No one asked a question. And he made the mistake of thinking, well, no one has any questions. and was then getting very frustrated when his employees were making mistakes. And he said to me, well, I'm asking them if they've got questions and they're not answering me. And the issue was, it was a room of passive people, so they're not going to answer like that. So make them feel valued, like you want their opinion and why. You know, we really value your contribution because you're new, you've got fresh eyes. You know, Tim, what do you think of our process? You know, can you tell me 3 things you'd improve? Ask really direct, specific questions. Do it one-on-one when you can, because again, a more passive communicator is not going to want to respond in front of a group. Sometimes they'll need to, but it's all about that environment that you create. It's giving them processing time as well. You know, agendas are wonderful for passive people, for meetings. Agendas where the items are listed as questions, so they can do the thinking first. So say you're going to be talking about a fundraiser you're going to do. Instead of just having fundraising as your agenda item, your agenda item might be, which venue in Warragul are we going to hold our next fundraiser at? So then your more passive person can think about it before the meeting, and then they're more likely to contribute in it. So I really encourage you, create that environment, and welcome feedback is another big thing. You know, encourage your established team not to get defensive if they suggest something. Don't get defensive yourself. I'm sure you wouldn't, but doing that, creating that environment, a safe space, is what a passive communicator needs. So my third question tonight came from Bo Rebecca, and her question was on a bit of a different path, which was really good. It's a great question. So Bo's question was about some tips on communicating online as part of a team, which is actually, hi Kerry, actually a big part of a lot of people's jobs now. You know, even if you're not working remotely, email, you know, you might be in a massive office across multiple floors. Email's big. I've got to say though, email is wonderful. It serves a purpose. But if you have 2 people sitting back to back and you're emailing rather than turning around and having a conversation, you got to stop that. Come on, communication, folks. It can be really damaging. It happens a lot, more than you would think. It's great. It's a great tool, but do be aware that we can get really lazy with technology. But Bo was keen to know some tips about how to communicate online as part of a team, particularly around keeping contribution levels equal and finding a balance between being assertive but not sounding too harsh when it's text-based communication. And it's a great point, because one of the important things to understand about communication is, more than the words that we say, what people read are our body language and our tone of voice. And of course, in written communication, in email, we don't get tone. We don't get body language. And this is where so much can be lost, where you can see people getting very offended, taking things out of context. You know, you've shot off a quick text message or a quick email thinking, yep, I'm busy, so I've just been really, I've just shot that off. And the other person's opened it and gone, oh my gosh, they've been so blunt. What did I do wrong? So you can lose control of a situation really quickly. So my first tip in communicating with a team using technology is, where possible, use something like this. Use video where you can. Skype, Zoom. They're wonderful platforms because you can still see someone's facial expressions. You can get the tone of voice. You can really get more of a feel for that authentic communication than you can without that, when you've just got email. So where you can, go video. It doesn't take any longer. Stick to an agenda. If it's a team meeting, I'm big on agendas. They keep you on track. Set a time for the meeting. Set an end time is very important as well. And stick to it. 1 hour meetings. come on, folks. A lot of the time you can knock it over in 20 minutes. So set 20 minutes and see how you go. Set a really tight agenda. Send it out beforehand. Tell people you expect them to read it beforehand. The other thing I encourage people to do, again, whether it's face-to-face communication, and there go the kids going off to bed in the background, whether it's face-to-face communication or online, is to set expectations early and to set them clearly, and to do that in a shared team environment. Set some ground rules, some expectations on how are you going to communicate with each other. What's okay, what's not okay. Set some standards. If you're having meetings involving multiple people and you're using a video tool or perhaps email, it might be, okay, so we're going to mute everyone who isn't speaking so no one can just interject. It might be that in the sidebar, in the chat room, that you put a little comment that you want to speak next. You can set some ground rules to make it flow, because of course if everyone has their microphones on at once, you do get that interrupting and interjecting, often not deliberately, because there can be the lag in the video time. As I'm talking, folks, if anyone does have a communication question, please type it in the comments, because I will hang around for a little bit on the end if there are questions. So please do that if you have any more questions to come. So yeah, I encourage people to set those ground rules. So it might be, okay, so we're going to have this meeting and we want to hear from everyone. So after the initial presentation, everyone's going to take their turn to have a say before we throw it open to general questions. It might be that you say at the start, I know there'll be a lot of questions, but please hold them until the end, until the presentation's finished. That's important because you're setting an expectation, then people are less likely to interject. And if they do interject, you can say, as I mentioned, we're going to hold questions until the end. It's much easier to regain control. Now, I'm not sure, Bo, if you're leading this team or a member of the team, but even if you're not leading it, suggesting that you have a chat about how you can communicate better being a virtual team, that's a really fair thing to raise, because it's a huge issue. You've got to get that communication right when you're a remote-based team. It's even more important than when you're face-to-face. So it's setting those ground rules, and remind it, that then becomes a tool that if someone's not following the ground rules, you can kind of pull them back into line without offending or causing conflict. You can say, yep, I can see you've got a question over there, but as we discussed at the start, we're going to have a question from everyone before anyone gets to ask a second question, things like this. For yourself, if you've got lots of ideas and you're wanting to communicate and contribute a lot of ideas and other people are really holding back, still communicate them, still put forward your ideas. But at the end of doing that, reach out to some of those other people, specifically like the advice with the passive communication in the previous question. Give them the opportunity to reply, but actually ask them to reply. This is my idea for the best approach to the situation. I'm really keen to get some feedback. Does anyone, have a different idea, or what were your thoughts about this part in particular? Engage other people, show them that you want that feedback, and then you're more likely to have a balanced conversation. As for harshness in written communication, this is something that comes up really frequently in organisations, because just like people have different communication styles face-to-face, we do over written communication styles too. And, some people, like I said, are getting offended because there's not a hi, hello, lovely introduction at the start. Other people are saying, we don't want waffle, we just want to get into the key message. With written communication, you really should be doing the thinking about making it really concise. Doesn't have to be harsh, doesn't have to be direct, but you should be able to convey your message quite quickly. People are swamped with email these days. They're drowning in their inbox. So someone who can present a concise message. Maybe you've got some dot points to make it really clear what your point's about. That's really valued. But something as simple as sticking a, good afternoon or hi Bo before you go into the email, and then a thanks or a regards, a sign off at the end. Don't underestimate the power of that. Because when you're sending the email and you don't have a greeting and you don't have a sign off, because you're just busy and you're just throwing that back, I know it shouldn't necessarily matter, but it often does. And for the sake of 2 words at the start, hi Bo, thanks heaps, or kind regards at the bottom, it can change the whole tone of that written communication. So I really encourage you to do that. Now, if there's no more questions, I'm going to be signing off shortly. Hi, Dominique. I'm going to be signing off shortly if there's no other questions. One final point though, I did have a unfortunate circumstance today where someone's had to cancel out of the effective communication workshop that I'm holding at Bunjil Place next week on Tuesday from 9:30 in the morning until 2:30 in the afternoon. So there is 1 ticket left for that workshop. It was a sellout. It includes lunch and morning tea. The ticket, if you go to my Facebook page, the link's there, but if you go to www.effectivecomms.narrywarren.eventbrite.com.au, you can snap up that last ticket there. My plan is to be doing these Facebook Lives each Thursday night at 8 p.m. when I can. So please feel free to send me through your questions through the week or live on a Thursday night, and I will absolutely do my best to answer them. If you want to send me a question through private message and you don't want your name attached to it, that's fine too. You can just let me know that when you send the question through. So thank you, everyone. Have a fabulous night, and I'll talk to you again next week.